boy who would be called Julian owed that name to Alexander. That name was settled before he ever drew breath, a fate woven with Alexander's from the start. His mother, Serena, chose it. At 20, Serena was working as a massage therapist when she met Charles. He was brilliant, charismatic, and her downfall. She defied her family, following him for 3 years, believing in a future he never promised. Eventually, she took matters into her own hands, thinking a child would cement their bond. When the test confirmed her pregnancy, she rushed to Charles, only to discover the man she loved was no storybook hero, but a man already married, with a newborn son of his own. Charles's father-in-law was the key to his political ascent. Divorce was unthinkable. Heartbroken, Serena checked into the hospital, resolved to end the pregnancy. Lying on the sterile bed, a sudden, fierce determination seized her. She sat up. She would have this child. She found a quiet town where no one knew her, and on a rain-soaked afternoon, she brought Julian into the world. For a time, she was proud. Charles came, offering money, offering apologies. But she met him at the door, slipper in hand, driving him away with all the fury of a woman betrayed. The sight of his sleek sedan became a neighborhood spectacle. Serena, with her delicate features and quiet demeanor, kept to herself, unaware of the whispers that painted her as the mistress. She only noticed the shifting looks, the unspoken judgments. When Charles next appeared, her attacks grew fiercer, both slippers flying at his expensive suits. Only once did her anger waver. She held the door ajar, her voice cold. "What's your son's name?" Charles, eager for any opening, supplied it eagerly. "Alexander." "Alexander," he said. "Which Alexander? The one that means great or glorious?" Serena, whose formal education ended early, frowned. She didn't know that character. She slammed the door in his face. "Fine. Get lost." Later that day, she visited the local library, her belly prominent. The librarian, concerned, helped her find a dictionary. Serena took it home, studying under the dim lamplight until she found it. Alexander, defender of men, a name of light and strength. She spent half the night poring over the pages, determined to find a name that would eclipse it. She rejected simpler words, finally settling on Julian. It spoke of youth, but also of something timeless and noble. She paired it with a middle name that meant bright fame. Julian. She whispered it, satisfied, and finally slept. Charles knew nothing of this. When he learned of the birth, he begged to see his son. Weary and vulnerable, Serena let him in. He gazed at the infant with joy, reaching out, but she threatened him with her slipper and he withdrew. He ventured, timidly, to ask if he might suggest a name. Serena held the baby close, her chin lifted with defiant pride. She had already chosen. Julian. Charles, who fancied himself cultured, hesitated. That's a strong name. Perhaps a bit imposing? Maybe something like Julian, but with hawk? Noble, free. Serena shot him a look of pure contempt. You think Alexander is elegant and Julian is coarse? Get out. Charles left, chastened. Serena took her son to register his name. The clerk asked for the characters. Julian, she stated clearly. Julian, as in illustrious. The clerk typed without comment, and Serena felt a flicker of disappointment. But it was done. Thus, from before his birth, Julian's life was entangled with Alexander's. Not just in name, but in blood. They were half-brothers, sharing the DNA of a man who had failed them both. This preordained connection became active when Julian turned 5. One evening, Serena watched a talk show where a psychologist discussed the challenges faced by children from single-parent homes. She began to watch Julian more closely. He was a quiet child. While other kids played in the muddy lots, he preferred his own company or clung to her. Serena didn't realize the other children avoided him, their parents' whispers having reached young ears. She blamed his father's absence. She remembered Charles mentioning his wife, a teacher, spent summers away at her family's lake house. Perhaps she thought Julian could stay with Charles for a few weeks. Feel the warmth of a father's presence. Charles, for all his flaws, sent money regularly. The next time Charles visited, Serena didn't reach for her slippers. She invited him in, an uncharacteristic gesture that filled him with hope. Hesitantly, she made her request. I was thinking, maybe Julian could stay with you for a bit this summer. Your house is empty. He's never had a father around. I worry about him. Charles was taken aback. What? Serena's temper flared. She stood to usher him out. Forget it. What kind of father are you anyway? No, I didn't mean no, Charles backpedaled. I was just surprised. Of course he can come. It's just, my son Alexander will be there. If Julian calls me Dad, his mother, she's fragile, could upset her. The idea of Julian calling him Dad was the last thing Serena wanted. The arrangement was settled. So, at 5 years old, Julian met Alexander, who was 6. He didn't know this boy with hair that seemed to defy gravity, who looked like he'd stepped out of a catalog, was his brother. He only knew he was being handed over to the man his mother always chased away. Serena knelt, smoothing his soft hair. You're going to stay with this nice man for a little while. Be good. You'll see me soon. Julian cried, pleaded, but it was no use. He was placed in the black car, sobbing as he watched his mother shrink to a speck and vanish. Serena cried too, alone in their apartment, cursing Charles with every name she knew. Julian, convinced he'd been abandoned, cried until his face was a mess of tears and mucus. Charles carried him into a large, airy house. Inside, a boy a head taller watched him with open curiosity. This is your brother, Alexander, Charles said, drawing the older boy forward. He's just a year older. You can play together. Julian wanted no one but his mother. Charles, exasperated, turned to Alexander. This is Julian, a friend's son. He's visiting. While I'm at work, you make sure he doesn't wander off. Okay? Alexander agreed solemnly. Why is he always crying? He's shy. Just be nice to him. Charles retreated to the kitchen, preferring cooking to childcare. Alexander circled the crying boy like a curious pup, poking his cheek, offering toys, but the tears didn't stop. Overwhelmed, Alexander flopped on the sofa with a dramatic sigh and fell asleep. Julian, exhausted, eventually cried himself to sleep beside him. The next morning, Julian woke to something sour being pushed between his lips. He bit down, his face screwing up in disgust. A terribly sour grape. Tears sprang anew. Alexander, watching, erupted into gleeful laughter. Charles, rushing out for work, barked a half-hearted order for Alexander to behave before leaving. Julian spent the morning in silent misery. Alexander, after failed attempts to engage him, stomped off to play alone. That night, Julian lay in bed, praying for morning and his mother's face. A need to use the bathroom arose. The room was dark and still. Too proud to wake Alexander, he crept out, fumbling in the blackness. He managed, shivering, and was stepping back into the hall when a dark shape leapt from a doorway with a shout. Julian froze, then screamed, a sound of pure terror. Alexander doubled over with laughter. The commotion brought Charles, who scolded Alexander fiercely. But once Charles left, Alexander crept close in the dark. He whispered, a ghost comes in here at night. Through that window. No shadow, just whoosh. Really big. Julian pulled the covers over his head. I'm not scared. Alexander patted the lump under the blanket. Don't worry. He's my friend now. I'll protect you. Within minutes, he was snoring. Julian, terrified and furious, decided he had to escape. The next afternoon, he pretended to nap. Once Charles left and Alexander was asleep, he slipped out, unlatched the front door, and ran. He ran until his lungs burned, then walked, trying to retrace the route from 2 days before. He was hopelessly lost. Alexander woke to an empty room. A cold dread settled in his stomach. The little crybaby had run off. His father had given him a job, watch the boy. He'd failed. He bolted downstairs, asking elderly neighbors on a porch if they'd seen a small, pale boy. One pointed down the street. Went that way quick as a jackrabbit. Alexander took off, searching block after block as the sky began to purple with dusk. Panic crept in. Stories of kidnapped children flashed in his mind. Julian, exhausted, sat on a curb near a shopping plaza dominated by giant superhero statues. The world was a terrifying maze. He remembered his mother's S about strangers and began to cry silently, wiping his face with dirty hands. A distant shout pierced the haze. A voice calling, not his name, but, "Kid! Hey kid!" Julian knew that voice. He scrambled to his feet, yelling back, "I'm here. Over here." Alexander sprinted toward him, skidding to a stop, relief washing over his anxious face. "I found you." Julian burst into fresh, gulping sobs. Alexander, feeling a sharp pang of guilt, wiped the grime from Julian's cheeks with his thumb.
I'm sorry.
"I'm really sorry." He took Julian's hand and led him home. Julian cried the entire way. Back at the house, desperate to avoid another parental scolding, Alexander tried to make amends. He offered a clean towel, but Julian just kept crying. "What now?" Alexander asked, bewildered.
I'm hungry.
"I walked all afternoon. Then I'll make you food. Just stop crying." At 6, Alexander's culinary skill was fried eggs. He used the small skillet his mother bought him, burning 5 eggs to varying degrees and presenting them on a plate. Julian, sniffling, ate. After 3.5, he started crying again. "Now what?" Alexander groaned. "It's too much. I can't finish." "Then don't." Alexander grabbed the plate and devoured the remaining egg and a half with impressive speed. Julian stared, tears forgotten, a small laugh escaping. "You eat fast." Alexander looked at him, eyes earnest. "I found you, brought you home, cooked for you, and ate your leftovers. Am I good?" Julian considered. "Right now, you are." Alexander frowned. "Only right now? You scare me. That's not good." Alexander made a sweeping gesture. "I won't scare you anymore." Julian looked skeptical, his dark eyes wide. "Really?" Alexander said, then hesitated. "But you can't tell my dad I lost you this afternoon. If you stop scaring me, I won't tell. Deal?" Alexander pinched Julian's cheek. "What's your name again?" "I was yelling kid the whole time." Julian told him. Alexander repeated it. "Too complicated. I'll just call you kid." After that, Julian stuck to Alexander like a shadow. The memory of being lost was too fresh. Though only a year apart, Alexander seemed older, taller, a natural leader among the neighborhood kids. Julian was small for his age, quiet, and hesitant. Alexander, despite his bravado, felt a sense of duty. He'd wipe Julian's face clean after a day of play before heading inside, avoiding another lecture from Charles. To Alexander, Julian was less a brother or friend and more a fascinating, if fragile, new possession. When the summer visit ended, Alexander stood outside to say goodbye. As Charles buckled Julian into the car, Alexander suddenly yelled, "Wait! I forgot something!" He dashed back inside. Charles started the engine, slowly pulling away from the curb. Julian twisted in his seat, watching the house. Just as they turned onto the main road, he saw Alexander sprint out the front door, chasing the car, something clutched in his hands. "Stop!" Julian cried out. Charles, startled by the outburst, hit the brakes. Alexander caught up, panting, and thrust 2 expensive action figures through the open car window. "Here. For you. You like these." Julian hugged the figures, torn. "My mom says not to take things." "Well, I say you take them," Alexander declared. And so, Julian returned to his mother's modest apartment in a quieter part of town, clutching trophies from a different world. For weeks after, Julian asked Serena when he could see Alexander again, when Alexander could visit them. At first, Serena gave vague answers. Soon, she'd just fall silent, sometimes wiping her eyes. In Julian's descriptions, Charles's house was a palace, and Alexander its prince. The action figures sat on their chipped TV stand, a glaring contrast to their surroundings. Serena worked at a clothing stall in the mall. She'd pass the toy section, eyes averted, the prices a silent reproach. The toys Alexander gave so casually were finer than any there. It made her own struggles feel shabbier. They lived in an old part of a neighboring town, a place of close-set, graying buildings chosen for cheap rent. A recent rezoning had placed it within a more desirable district, sending rents soaring. Serena counted every penny. One night, she made sweet and sour ribs. Julian, licking his fingers, said, "Mom, Alexander would like these." Serena put her fork down, a sudden ache in her throat. She gripped his arm. "Tell me, was Alexander's house big?" Julian stretched his arms wide. "Huge. And his clothes? Nice? Really nice. He's really nice looking too." Tears spilled down Serena's cheeks. She turned away. "All of that, it should have been yours. Do you understand?" Julian didn't, not really, but he nodded, frightened by her tears. He never mentioned Alexander to her again, but he thought of him often. In the narrow streets near their apartment, other children avoided Julian, their parents' opinions clear. Alexander's brief kindness became the single bright spot in a lonely childhood, making everything else seem duller. A year passed. For a 5-year-old, it was a lifetime. But Julian hadn't forgotten. The next summer, the black car returned. Julian, dressed in a crisp shirt and a little vest, climbed in without tears. In the new, unfamiliar house, a neighbor remarked on the handsome boy. Charles smiled tightly. A colleague's child. Just for a few days. Alexander was out playing. He came back grubby and saw Julian sitting stiffly on the sofa. A wide grin split his face and he lunged, dirty hands pinching Julian's cheeks. Julian just laughed, letting him. Alexander, now in elementary school, had summer workbooks. He hated writing. He pushed them toward Julian, who was still in kindergarten, claiming he was teaching him letters. Julian took the pencil, gripping it tightly in his left hand, and filled the pages with careful script. Alexander watched, fascinated. "Hey, you're left-handed too." Julian's grip tightened. "Is that bad?" "No. Me too. Teacher wants me to switch." "I won't." Julian relaxed. "Me neither." The next day, Alexander gathered his friends for a trip to the creek. Julian, wary of water, stayed on the bank, turning over stones to find crawdads. He spotted a small one and reached for it, following its scuttle right to the water's edge. An older boy, seeing this, snatched the crawdad first, holding it tauntingly out of reach. Julian jumped for it. The boy shoved, harder than intended, and Julian tumbled backward down the shallow, sloping bank. His forehead struck a sharp rock, and the current pulled him under. The boy yelled in panic. "Help! Someone's in the water." A man fishing nearby waded in and hauled Julian out. He was coughing, drenched, but alive. He sat in a shivering heap, silent tears cutting through the mud on his face, a nasty gash on his temple weeping blood. Someone ran to get Alexander, who was further downstream. He dropped his bucket, creature scattering, and ran, bare feet slapping the ground. When he saw Julian, pale and bleeding, a cold rage settled over him. "Who did this?" he demanded, voice low. The other boys pointed to the culprit. He pushed him. Alexander didn't wait for excuses. He charged, slamming into the bigger boy, sending him sprawling onto the gravel. He drew back his fist, but the fisherman pulled him off. "He's just a kid. It was an accident." "It wasn't." Alexander struggled. "His head is bleeding. You should get him to a clinic," the man urged. before it gets infected. Alexander relented, shooting a venomous look at the other boy. He took Julian's hand, thanked the man, and started the walk toward town. He stopped to examine the cut. Does it hurt? A little. Alexander blew on it gently. This helps. Almost there. A chill wind kicked up. Julian, soaked, trembled. You cold? Alexander asked. A little. Walking fast will help. Take your shirt off. Why? Just do it. Reluctantly, Julian peeled off his wet t-shirt. Alexander yanked his own dry shirt over his head and pulled it onto Julian. It swam on him. Then Alexander squeezed into Julian's smaller, damp shirt, which barely reached his waist. Julian giggled at the sight. Stop laughing. Alexander said, but there was no heat in it. Why are you so nice to me? Julian asked, sincerity shining in his eyes. I wish you were my real brother. Alexander took his hand. I am your real brother. At the clinic, a nurse helped them. Alexander, seeing the blood, whispered to her, I have to go get money. Can you watch him? He ran the 2 miles home, grabbed his piggy bank, and ran back, the damp shirt clinging to him. The nurse, amused by the serious boy in the too small shirt, teased him. Your brother needed a transfusion. We're out of blood. Would you give him yours? Alexander immediately offered his arm. Take mine. I have plenty. She laughed.
I'm kidding.
You're very sweet. I'm not sweet.
I'm cool.
He's the sweet one. That evening, Charles saw the bandage. He dragged Alexander away, the sound of a spanking echoing down the hall. Alexander didn't cry. He stayed in his room after skipping dinner. Julian picked at his food, eyes on the closed door. Charles sighed. Do you like your brother? Julian nodded. Do you like me? Julian looked at him, the resistance clear in his young eyes. Charles's heart sank. He knew. Julian pushed his plate away. I'm full. He went to Alexander's room. Alexander was on the floor with Legos.
I'm sorry, Julian whispered.
For what? You got in trouble. I got you hurt. We're even. Does your dad hit you? I don't have a dad. Just my mom, Serena. She hits me sometimes too. Alexander absorbed this. Serena. Easier to remember than Julian. On the weekend, Charles took them to an amusement park. A ticket vendor remarked on his 2 handsome sons. Beaming with paternal pride, Charles later bought them matching outfits. Denim jackets, plaid shirts, baseball caps. Because of those matching clothes, Julian wouldn't see Alexander again for 10 years. The afternoon they wore them, storm clouds gathered. Alexander was teaching Julian to make paper airplanes. Julian made a simple one. See? I can do it. Alexander shrugged, folding a complex design. I know 12 ways. I was going to teach you, but since you know. Julian watched, mesmerized, as Alexander's plane sailed out the window. Teach me, he begged. Alexander, preening, agreed. He was patient step by step. Julian was a quick learner. He held his finished plane, took a deep breath, and was about to launch it when the front door lock clicked. Who's that? My dad. Throw it. Julian threw. The plane flew straight as the door opened, landing in the hands of a tall, slender woman who had just entered. Alexander yelled, Mom, and leapt into her arms. Years later, Julian's memory of that woman was hazy. Tall, beautiful, but with a strained, joyless quality. She asked him gentle, probing questions that somehow felt dangerous. She sent Alexander to another room. Julian answered everything. The woman then took her phone to the balcony. He could hear her voice, sharp and angry. Charles's name repeated like a curse. Rain began to hammer the windows. Charles arrived, soaked and frantic. A violent argument erupted. From the other room, Alexander beat on the door, screaming for both of them, his voice raw with fear. Julian was sent home that night. He developed a high fever, and in his delirium, felt what might have been his mother's tears on his burning skin. Later, he learned the word for what happened: exposed. The last vivid color of his childhood was washed away by that relentless rain, blurred further by fever, leaving only a beautiful, haunting impression. The doorbell rang, ignored. The frantic buzzing of video game controllers filled the room. Dude, what power-up did you use? No way you caught up that fast. My controller's busted. Skill issue on the turns. Passing you now. Come on, Alex. Let me win one. A phone vibrated on the coffee table. Alex, eyes on the screen, nodded toward it. Your phone. The other boy, Ben, snatched it up. Hello? Oh, Mr. Adams. Yes, Alex is here. That was you at the door? Sorry, we were debating a physics problem. Really intense. I'll get it. He scrambled to the door. Mr. Adams stood there, unamused. The day you two debate physics is the day pigs fly. Alex, get your things. We're going home. Alex didn't look up. Which home? Your home. Your stepmother and brother are there. Don't be difficult. I don't have a stepmother or a brother. That's not my home. Charles's patience snapped. He strode in, grabbing Alex's arm. I'm not asking. Alex stood, shaking off the grip. He was taller than his father now, lean but broad-shouldered. You want a demonstration of difficult? Fine. Let's go. Alex grabbed his jacket and walked out. In the car, Charles tried again. You're a junior now. This sports scholarship facade. It's an embarrassment. Happy to relieve you of the embarrassment. Alex, your mother's been gone 2 years. You have to move forward. Forward to what? To being like you? No thanks. Julian sat at the dining table in a strange, overly tidy house. An hour ago, Charles had given them a tour. Every room except one, locked tight. Serena was already in the kitchen, the new lady of the house. He still didn't understand. A few months ago, over a quiet dinner, Serena had announced it. I'm getting married. To your father. Charles. Why? His wife died. He asked. I said yes. I don't agree. I didn't ask you to. Serena had always been stubborn. She'd had Julian against all advice, and now she was marrying Charles against Julian's wishes. A strange silence had grown between them. Now, watching her, he thought maybe she'd imagined this moment for years. He was curious about Alex. What did the boy who looked like a catalog model grow into? He likely wouldn't be welcoming. Serena produced an impressive lunch. Charles and Alex weren't back. She dished a small plate for Julian. Be polite, especially to Alex. Charles says he's trouble. Fights. Maybe we can arrange for him to board at school. This is his house. If anyone boards, it should be me. It's not like when you were children. Who knows what he thinks of us now? Then you shouldn't have come. I did what I did for you. Serena cut herself off. Just remember, all of this should have been yours years ago. The front door was nudged open. Julian looked up. A young man leaned in the doorway, all sharp angles and cold appraisal under a shock of dark hair. He wore a thin black jacket against the winter chill, and his gaze felt like shards of ice. Well, look who's here. Julian met the stare, silent. A faint, mocking smile touched Alex's lips before he pushed off the doorframe and walked to his room. The door shut, then sounds of violent reorganization erupted. Charles came in, flustered. Alex, come out. Time for lunch. The noises continued. Serena ventured over. Alex, I made lunch. The door flew open. Alex stood there, a duffel bag in hand. Space is all yours. Do what you want with it. He brushed past them. Charles followed him out, arguing down the hallway. Serena sat, exhaling shakily. See? Acts like I'm the criminal. Julian just ate. He couldn't reconcile this cold stranger with the memory of his brother. Charles returned alone, annoyed. Let's eat. Thank you, Mr. Adams. I'm finished. Julian stood and retreated to his assigned room, locking the door. He lay on the bed, a deep, restless frustration churning inside. He opened the window, letting the freezing air blast in. He didn't miss their old apartment, the drafty windows, the noisy neighbors, but he hated this place just as much. Ben was practicing a racing game when a specific knock came at his door. Alex stood there with a bag. "Mind if I crash here a while?" "Absolutely." Ben took the bag. "So, the homecoming didn't go well?" Alex just grunted, dropping onto the sofa. "You see your what stepbrother?"
Alex lit à cigarette.
"What about it? What's he like?" Alex blew out smoke. "Like his mother." Nearly a week passed. Charles arranged a transfer to the city's top high school for Julian and a cushy office job for Serena. She settled into her new life without complaint. At dinner, Charles laid out plans. "You'll be in the same accelerated class as Alex. Top teachers. Maybe you can be a good influence." Julian said nothing. He's on a sports scholarship because he missed exams after his mother passed. Charles's tone was weary. "But he refuses to try now. A real waste." Serena listened quietly. Julian focused on his soup. "Be nice to your brother," Charles said, official and hollow. "Help each other out." Julian put his spoon down. "May I be excused?" After, in his room, he opened the window again. The cold was clarifying. He had one goal: excel, escape, never look back. On the last afternoon of break, Ben hosted a homework copying party. They gathered outside his building, waiting for stragglers. A pretty girl named Elise arrived first, positioning herself near Alex. "You eat yet?" she asked.
"Yeah."
"Where?" Alex thumbed toward a deli. "Was it good?" It was food. The group headed to Ben's, only for Ben to realize he'd locked them out. Suggestions were floated.
Ben nudged Alex.
"What about your place? You know the situation." "Exactly. We'll provide moral support. Check out this new stepbrother. Rumor is he's in our class." The others chorused agreement. Alex shrugged, leading the way. The house was warm and quiet. One bedroom door was closed. Alex tossed his jacket aside. "Glasses are there if you're thirsty." Ben pointed to the closed door. "Who's in there?" "Who do you think?" "Ah, the bonus kid." They spread out, filling the living room with noise. Alex turned on the TV. Elise offered to copy his homework. He declined. Julian was napping. The noise, and Ben's comment at his door, woke him. He felt a flush of anger. These would be his classmates tomorrow. Great. He needed the bathroom. He changed out of his silly pajamas, opting for a serious sweater. He took a breath and opened the door. The chatter died. All eyes turned to him. Alex was the last to look, his attention lingering on the TV where a movie played. A heroine was declaring her love. Their eyes met for a stretched second. Then Alex looked back at the screen. Julian walked to the bathroom, stepping over discarded jackets. The door closed. A boy in the living room whistled. "Shame it's not a sister, Alex." Alex didn't look away from the TV. "Why, what would you do?" "You know what I'd do." The guys laughed. Elise swatted at him.
Gross.
Julian washed his face with cold water. The laughter outside felt pointed. He dried his hands, opened the door. Smoke hung in the air. New smell. New hatred. He walked past them, went to the bathroom window and shoved it open. Then the kitchen window. Then every window in the common areas. The freezing winter air surged in. Shouts of protest erupted. "What the hell? Is he insane?" "Alex, your brother's a psycho." Alex stood, walked to an open window, and finished his cigarette, leaning into the cold breeze. He stubbed it out and closed the window, sitting back down without a word. Ben shut the other windows, fuming. "Now I get why you left." "The audacity." Elise looked worried. Alex just shook his head. "Leave it." The first day of school. Charles was ready to drive them. Alex was by a bicycle. Your father's driving us, Julian said.
I'm biking.
Alex rode off without a backward glance. Charles was waiting by the car. Where's Alex? He rode. More trouble. Don't mind him, Julian. I don't. The school was imposing. The principal herself greeted Charles and Julian. A brilliant record. We're thrilled to have him. As for Alex, we're doing our best. In the hallway outside the classroom, Julian spoke. I don't want to introduce myself. The teacher was taken aback. Why ever not? I dislike it. After a pause, she agreed. Fine. I'll do it. The classroom was noisy. Ben was complaining loudly about his copying-related injuries until someone hissed that the teacher was here. She introduced Julian briefly and pointed him to an empty seat near the back. His new desk mate, a girl with a lopsided ponytail, whispered her name.
I'm Chloe.
Julian gave his name, his eyes scanning the room. An empty desk in the last row. That would be Alex's. Just as the teacher finished, Alex walked in, sliding past her. Meeting? She asked, skeptical. Team stuff. You're not just an athlete, Alex. See me second period. She left. Alex walked to his desk, not looking at Julian as he passed. Math class began. Julian opened his book. The future stretched ahead, cold and uncertain, bound tighter than ever to the brother who was now a stranger.